cheating sucks, narcissists suck. We're just figuring this thing out one step at a time.
All right, guys. So you've been wanting to do this for a little while, and there's a lot of lies here. Like you guys count like 51 lies or something crazy.
Multiple lies every day. There's new lies, but 50 at least.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So why now? What's this about, and why now?
Because we feel like our kids need to have the truth, and at that point, after we give them the truth, which is what we're about to do, that they, I guess, can do with it what they will. We feel like their opinion of us is based on these absolute delusions and lies, mainly from the illegitimate Mac, but also from Twin 2. So we're just here to set the record straight.
Where do you want to start?
I think we'll start from the beginning. We've made a list.
It's hard to keep up with it all.
We had to go through every single video, which was grueling and shocking. After we were made aware of these videos recently by quite a few people, we decided to go ahead and take a look and go through them. So we went through them and made this list. It seems like at the beginning of every single video of the illegitimate Mac, there's like a little clip that says, wife of 25 years, had a long-term affair, blah, blah, blah. He's made maybe around 100 videos on TikTok.
There's more, but he's erased them.
Okay.
But we have copies.
Because he's been caught lying through those, and he had to pull them down because there's some pretty nefarious claims that are just utterly untrue. But fortunately, we recorded those before he did.
So you guys aren't here to say that this was a decision that you made that you just thought was easy and simple and nobody should be bothered by. Why don't you talk about that and then maybe go into those lies, because I think that's important.
Yeah, what we'll clarify is there was no sex before this separation. There was no long-term thought process or premeditation. And the details will show once we realized what we wanted to do. We had one meeting so as not to drag it out, not to prolong, not to be secretive, made the plan and was going to execute that plan.
And that was Monday before Thanksgiving. So 3 days before this all went down.
So the claim that this has been going on for 20 years with you guys
is a joke. Honestly, I wish 20 years ago it did happen. I think it would have saved us a lot of heartache and some misery. Lie number one, there was no 20-year affair, and there was no affair. There was no long-term affair, nothing. There was talk of us sexting. I know mentioned to at least my sister. I'm sure he mentioned it to every single other person he spoke to, which is pretty much every person I know in my life, family, friends, and otherwise, that we were sexting. He gave details to my sister of these sexting pictures, and they don't exist. I've never sexted in my life. That's disgusting. But if he has these so-called pictures, then I give him full permission to show everyone he knows.
The copious amounts of lies, it comes from a place of ego that can't handle the truth that was delivered to him the day of. Whether it was to my ex-wife, Twin 2, or the illegit Mac, they were told exactly the truth that day and just chose not to believe it.
So the idea that this was a complete surprise and you had no idea is also another lie, because you've shared that information.
Well,
you both have shared information.
I think the lie is that we didn't, that they've said, both of them have said that we didn't give them any information, that we're not talking to them or whatever, which is not true. We both were very honest. We told every detail, and it just didn't seem to be good enough. They just couldn't come to terms with the fact that there was no sex and that there was no affair.
I think that's an important point for your kids to understand, because
Yeah.
I think that's the lie that they're driving. Or he's
Yeah, because
driving.
even my daughter recently in one of her TikToks said that we were caught. That's just not true. There was no catching anything. There was nothing to catch.
And the challenge is, we will show through legitimate receipts or proof that the truth we're trying to give is actually the truth. We'll show it through text messages from Twin 2, which was my ex-wife. We'll show it from letters and information and text that was sent to her from the illegit Mac. We'll show it in bank accounts in terms of what was provided to my ex-wife, Twin 2, the very same day of November 25th when this all went down. We'll show how she's lied in paperwork regarding citizenship, residency I should say, in Idaho, that she had moved there on November 25th. That's the exact day this whole thing went down, and that's when I was at their compound. We call it the compound, the Jonestown compound, because it's her parents' place, where the illegitimate Mac now lives with his mommy and daddy, which he was furious over. Our brother-in-law, that he now calls the good brother-in-law, Charlie. And we'll say his name because the illegitimate Mac has said his name. And we'll show Charlie's feckless involvement in this whole thing as well.
And lies.
We'll show the proof of how they were provided for, what we said, what we didn't say. All he's done is proposed speculation on his part. All he's done is, like he said, try to piece it together in his schizophrenic mind, which is a challenge because that actually does run in that family. We never intended to make this public at all, out of respect for our children.
Yep.
We'll show that our plan was to tell both of them and then follow up with the kids. But we're also going to show how the illegitimate Mac said, no, we're going to throw a bomb, a grenade on that household, which meant my younger kids, twin two, my ex-wife, his parents, the whole thing on Thanksgiving morning instead of calling me. That's the challenge.
How would you guys address the idea that it's kind of a shocking thing to happen within a family?
Yeah.
How do you address that? You know, sort of.
We realized that it was shocking and is shocking, and we know that it has caused pain, and that was important to us to let them know how sorry we are for that pain, but also knowing that this is life. The fact is, we love each other. There was just no choice for us. We just feel like it's absolutely the way it's meant to be. We are very sorry for the pain and sorry for what it's put the kids through. But they have put these kids through way more than necessary. They have put them in the middle and they have made themselves victims, and they're not victims in this.
No.
It's pitiful.
The problem is, as we go through these details, you'll see how that whole family, the illegitimate Mac's family, twin two and twin one's family, that's who they are.
They're constant victims.
That's how they operate.
Very weak, and it's sad that the kids have been put in the position to feel sorry for their parents.
He always talks about how he's doing the videos to heal and to help others. When those of us that know him know that he is internally rageful and vindictive, but they're all unbelievably passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive. I've given you an opportunity multiple times to come look me in the eyeballs so we could talk about it, which was the plan in the first place. The opportunity's still there, but you won't do it because they're passive-aggressive. His whole purpose wasn't to heal. If it were, he could have easily gone and talked to a therapist.
Exactly.
And spared his children and mine from the biggest portion of this garbage.
both Twin 2 and Illegitimate Mac are showing messages from, you know, in the beginning, especially when we were texting a lot more, showing those kids these messages, talking about it with them, sharing everything that should be between us and our ex-spouses, period. The children should have never known those things. It's disgusting. And that's not to say we're here to have that hard conversation with our kids. We are here to answer the questions. We're here to hear their anger, their sadness, their pain, all of it, and then heal. That's what we want. That is not what they want. It's obvious in the videos that they've made that they revel in the fact that these kids hate us. They desire that. It's sick. And not only do Twin 2 and Illegitimate Mac want that, so do their family. The video that we have of his youngest daughter saying some hideous things, some disgusting things about her dad, lies. And Twin 2 was so happy listening to his youngest daughter lie, and her very words were, "See, I told you, they've been abused." Illegitimate Mac, you could see the joy on his face.
My ex-wife, Twin 2, I have the text. Proves and shows that she knows, as well as each one of my kids, they've accused me of being a pedophile.
Push the memories away, so I don't really remember, so I don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah.
But I started feeling like he had done something to me sexually when I was little.
Oh.
All right, gotta grab that. Is everything all right?
She's just remembering some things bad about her dad, possibly. So just kind
Trying
of
to figure out if it's real or not.
yeah. She's not sure.
I talked to one person about it. I told Molly, I said, Molly, there's this thing, I can't tell you what it is now. I'm going to talk to her when I get back.
And you compare notes,
But I can't figure out if it's real or
well,
not.
God will show you if
But
it's
I
real,
remembered,
okay?
like, remembering things and thinking it was just some horrible thing that was put in my head. I don't think it was.
Possibly some sexual stuff. So with her dad. So it's
My God, girl.
I know.
Please.
I'm telling you, they have been abused.
Don't.
So
That can't be. Well, you know what?
I know. That's why I don't know, because it's hard to even think that that would be real, and I can't tell. We're just gonna.
Okay, let's not.
Yeah,
This
okay,
camera
that's
right
what-
here is live.
gotcha.
This one's off.
Okay.
I know who I am and who I'm not, and it's not that. And my ex-wife knows that, and we have the text. All the things they claim, they got nothing to show for it because it's speculation and untruth.
It's
We've got the proof, and the
lies.
kids can see it. So we'll go through the details. I think that'll help us keep it in line, but that's kind of a decent intro anyway.
We've talked about the affair. We've talked about the sexting. I'm just going through each lie that we heard. They called you a serial cheater, or have called you that many, many times. Do you want to address that?
So a bit of context for my kids' sake, because my kids found out something
And for my girl.
shameful that I did 12 years ago, and that was cheated on my wife. I did that 12 years ago. Never again had I done it, and it was the most shameful thing. I paid the price of that shame for 12 years. When Twin 2 and I met in college, I knew exactly what I was looking for, even at 21, 22 years old. And I stated that. The life I wanted to lead, what I wanted to live and do. And before we ever started dating, I said, does that sound like a life that you'd want to live? She said, sure. I know that doesn't sound all that romantic, but I knew what I wanted to do. And I just wanted to be objective and specific so that we could remain friends if that wasn't the life she wanted to lead, and we could carry on. But she said yes. And, you know, we wound up getting engaged. And in that scenario, we had to go through premarital counseling. Dean of women, dean of men, dean of students. And at that age, it doesn't matter how much premarital counseling you go through. There's just some things you can't know and discover. So we did. We wound up getting married. Long story short, all of that radically changed. After my oldest daughter and first child was born, everything changed. All of a sudden, she didn't want to do any of that. And that began to be really hard on me. I come from a very affectionate family. I went through this when I was 9 or 10. Unlike my adult children who have turned their backs at an adult age, a young adult age, with no information or thoughts from me. But she changed, and I began to wonder for quite some time, what's wrong with me? What am I doing? Am I not caring for her like she liked? We'll find out over time that this family is utterly and completely devoid of the internal fortitude and depth of ability for relationship on so many levels. There's an intellectual capacity problem there in a big way. But the bottom line is, all that radically changed after my first daughter, and I spent a long time wondering what was wrong with me. Began to have those conversations. Hey, there is little to no verbal or physical affection at all. You begin to wonder, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? And I come from an affectionate family. And we're not talking, by the way, oh, I should have just maybe hugged a little more, or kissed a little more, or maybe talked a little more, like he tries to dismiss. No, this family has a problem that stems from their mother, and we'll talk about that as well. I mean, we're talking about a mother that has the conflict resolution of a 5-year-old, and also the worldview and thought process of a 5-year-old.
There's just no growth, ever.
At all. I did want to go to the mission field at the time. I am thankful I didn't. I didn't want to be a pastor of a church. I just wanted to raise 5, 6 kids in a place where I thought we could be of some legitimate help somehow and just engage with the community and live there, maybe in a more rural setting.
So 12 years ago when that happened, how'd that come about? Did you get caught in the middle of that? How'd that affair happen, and how did it come about that that everybody knew?
Really quickly, this is a great lead-in because the illegitimate Mac asked this on video, and this is something we want to address that'll lead you into this, but he asked her that, and she said, Twin 2 said, well, let me think about that. You don't have to think about the truth. I just wanted to point that out. You don't have to think about the truth. The truth is just the truth.
I confessed it. I didn't get caught. Anyway, to get to that, I didn't want to farm a list of family and friends and their pets to go to the mission field. So at that point, she was really scared, didn't want to do that, didn't understand what that entailed. So we had moved back here to Oregon, where she's from, where her family is. Me trying to accommodate a wife that I wanted to love, wanted to be true to, wanted to live a life with. And so we moved back here. And I started a business. And in my mind, everything I was doing at that point was, okay, what can I do, what can I build that allows me to carry on with this goal that I had set in place that I had discussed with her originally. And I thought, if I can create a business that somebody else can run while we're on the mission field, or I can turn around and sell that would support us there, that would assuage her concerns with regard to how we're going to be provided for on a mission field. That was the whole motivation behind the business in the first place. So it did incredibly well for the first several years. I was young. I was too ignorant to understand legitimate industry trends. I didn't understand all those things because I was young and ignorant. But nevertheless, it did incredibly well. And then we wound up moving back to Texas based on her recommendation, by the way. When she first brought it up, I'm like, I don't want to move back there. At that point, I was enjoying the outdoors here and things like that. That business wound up failing, long story short, wound up going through bankruptcy. It was the deepest, darkest, hardest time of my life because I thought, okay, all these years of working to build this, to just get back to what I originally told her we wanted to do in the first place. And so at this point, I'm starting to build some resentment. We're having more kids, still very kind of a cold, unaffectionate person. And so that business failed, and it was just really dark. I felt incredibly alone. There was no sharing of strategy or conversation or life together in terms of feedback from her. Again, it goes back to the intellectual capacity thing, which is going to be hard for some people to hear. They're going to think I'm a jackass for saying that, but whatever. The truth is, I felt deeply alone by this point. This is some years later after we were married. I felt deeply alone, like something was really wrong with me, and I didn't know what to do about it. You just keep on keeping on, and we did. 26 years. Once that business failed and I came to a dark place, I was doing anything and everything I could to just keep food on the table and pay the bills. I got drunk one night and I cheated on my wife with this girl who was showing attention. And once I did that, I thought, well, I fucked this up so bad. I just ruined it. And we're talking about a real short-term period of time. We're not talking about a long thing. And so my wife was up here visiting her family. She came home and I told her. I told her in the driveway of the house we were renting at that point. Of course, it wrecked her. And I saw the pain in her face and eyes and heard it, and it just destroyed me and her because it was shameful. I owned it. I told her, and I've owned it ever since. Matter of fact, I've never been able to let it go until just this year.
And you guys made a decision together not to share that, of course, with the young children at that time.
Yeah, and essentially at that point, I'm just standing there dead feeling on the inside, and she's screaming and crying, and I said, I get it. And then she finally said, why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you fighting for me? And I said, I feel like I've fucked up so bad that I've ruined it. You won't want me. And she said, I want you to fight for this. I want you to fight for our relationship and our marriage and our kids. And I said, well, okay. And I remember vividly turning and looking at the house. This was dark outside. All of our kids asleep inside, and me thinking, I want to do whatever it takes to make sure I take care of those kids. And if she can forgive me, I'll try this again. In hindsight, that's when I should have left. In hindsight, that's what I should have done then, but I didn't. So I did cheat. I never cheated again. Carried that shame ever since, and as we go through, we'll talk about how and why that shame was somewhat reminded when it was convenient and necessary by her family. What I told her was, nothing that you have ever done justifies what I did. I own that. Nothing that she had ever done merits what I did. It was horrible. The only solace I took at that point was the last chapter of Ecclesiastes, where it talks about how King David was a man after God's own heart, even after Bathsheba and killing her husband. I kept telling myself, that's the man I want to be, and that's what I'm going to do. Even before that happened, I just said, look, you're losing me. I don't know what to do anymore, how to reach you. They just want to dismiss it and make it sound like I was over needy. I wasn't. I'm just talking about normal, everyday affection that people give. And so I said, there's contributions to our failed marriage that you have. But what I did doesn't merit that.
What's the next point you guys want to move to in sort of the, again, list of lies? Because, I would imagine 25 years, 26 years, we could be here for days and days. What are the high points that you guys want to address going forward? Because I think it's important, the whys, which is what you just established.
My why?
Yeah, as quickly as you're able to.
The big and little of it is my kids know, whether they want to admit it or not. They were present for the 25 years of marriage. I should have left Steve when Austin was 4 years old. The first time I saw his rage was when I was actually pregnant with Austin, and it's something I'd never seen before from a man. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, again, I feel like my kids, they know very well the rage and the lack of emotion, the lack of affection, the lack of love throughout my marriage and towards them. I used to tell them all the time, I cannot have a relationship with your kids for you. I made up a lot of his lacking. I wanted my children to love him and respect him as their dad. To a fault. I did it to a fault where I covered way too much. He was not the father he should have been to my girls, and he definitely wasn't the father he should have been to my son. He was abusive towards Austin since Austin was a teenager. The girls know that. They've seen that. So if they're not admitting that and acknowledging that, that's on them. So when I say I earned my way out, I earned my way out. I resented the illegitimate Mac for many years, and then I just stopped giving a shit. It was just easier, and it was happier.
My kids know as well. Since they were very young, I used to come home from work or get done with work at the end of the day, and I'd say to my ex-wife, have you looked your kids in the eyes today? Have you told them you love them? Have you put your arms around them? Often, regularly. And she told me, look, I'm just, I never remember a day that my mother ever told me that she loved me, put her arms around me, or sat me in her lap. This is what she told me. If you knew her mother, you'd understand. But these kids, they know where the relationship came from. They know I sat in the hallway when they were little, reading their books to them, while they were going to sleep at night with a book light. They know that I'd have my oldest son on my back and my oldest daughter in my hand in the mountains, looking for a place to hunt elk, and we'd see deer. They know where that relationship came from.
As do my children.
So those are two lies really ultimately right there. The illegit Mac said, didn't understand why, doesn't know why, didn't know the answer, didn't know why. You're saying that was a conversation.
I have a letter where he admits exactly why. He knows why.
Yeah, and
yeah, he knows
probably
why,
saying-
and so does she.
Yeah.
They come from the same family,
Yeah.
obviously. They were lacking the same tools. That is not an excuse. We all grow up and we all take responsibility for ourselves and decide what changes we need to make to go forth and grow and evolve and be better. I'll speak for my ex. He would always tell me that, yeah, I'll change, I'll work on it. Well, years went by, never happened. Not what my kids deserved. They did not get what they deserved from him. It seems as though my girls are getting something from him that they've desired now. I hope that lasts. I think a lot of it is sick, what he's doing. So, but the fact is, I don't want my kids to hate their dad. He wants them to hate me. I do not want them to hate him, even though I hate him right now. And I don't hate anybody. But I hate him right now for what he's doing to my kids, to my girls especially, and what he's done to my son.
And mine as well.
And his kids. Yeah. The stuff, I mean, it's sick. Take responsibility and stand up for your kids.
We'll get into those details.
let's do that. Let's get into those.
And there's so many lies. We can just move through these quickly.
The illegit Matt tries to say on video that he was my only friend when I cheated. I was in Texas, had some friends. That she encouraged me and us to move to Oregon. I'll just tell you that Jill always wanted to get back here since not too long after we moved to Texas. And that was always in the cards and in the works. I had a piece of property in Texas that I know would have been a good piece of retirement property for us. I didn't stay there and build that out over the next several years because, one, I had a young son that I hadn't been able to spend as much time with outdoors. Wanted to move here for me and him to have some more time together in his last 3 or 4 years. Now what she's done is I moved over to Central Oregon to be close to him so that I could see him. And without saying a word, she moved 7 hours away into Idaho and took him away from me, and then lied about when she moved over there so that she could try to file.
This one's important. We did not choose to separate from our exes and therefore abandon our kids. They want our kids to think that our choosing to be together is us abandoning our kids, and that is absolute garbage. And they know it, and we know it, and it's ridiculous. The illegitimate Mac and Twin 2 created that ultimatum for our children. And our kids obviously felt like they had no other choice but to choose the weak parent.
Well, that our leaving had no grounds. Absolutely. Just flabbergasted over
We've
how this could have
explained that.
happened.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. 25, 26 years. Then we get into this hunting story.
I did not want to go hunting, I'll just say it. Not because of him, but because that is very important and sacred to me. It is my peace. It is with my family. We're pretty picky on who we let come. It's people who are experienced, and it's people who know what to do, and I know she's not. I did not want to be stuck. We sometimes hike 20 plus miles a day in the mountains, and it's not easy hiking. It's hard, and sometimes it would be boring to someone who has no idea what's going on. So I did tell the illegitimate Mac to please tell your sister not to come, because I will not get stuck with her and have it ruin my time. This is something I look forward to every year. It's a time of peace for me. So
He stated that I told her not to come because of this. At this point, there was none of this. There wasn't any of that. There was nothing at that point. except for maybe the beginning inklings of a connection / attraction there that was unspoken. She decided not to go on her own. There's a video where he talks about how my, at the time, 14-year-old son, me and April, and the illegit Mac were hunting together. I was always with the illegit Mac. My youngest son was always with her. That's how we did it. He was always around. And so if you reference that video, he saw us the entire time. They walked up the hill to take off some articles of clothing because it was hot. I was sitting on a log 10 feet away. At that point, we were becoming pretty aware that there was something between us. She walks up, and here is the context, the exact words of the conversation. And she says,
I'm not trying to F up your family.
Ruin or destroy your family.
Right.
And I said, I know. I said, I'm not trying to do that to yours either.
Yep. The illegit Mac tells 2 different stories.
3.
Or 3. They're all different. The kids don't notice that. I mean, those are big deals because it's called lying. He was never as close to me as whispering in my ear. There was never anything intimate. It was never like that. Those are all lies.
That was the extent of it.
That was the extent of it.
And then like the next day or day after that, a group of us were hiking up through the snow. And this is a story where he comes out, of which he has since deleted. He essentially accuses us of premeditated murder.
The quick story is I had a pack on, a pistol on my side, a snow jacket on, tons of gear on. We always have a bullet chambered because we're hunting elk. As soon as you get out of the truck, you chamber a bullet, your safety's on. My cousin and her husband and son were in front of me. Illegitimate Mac was behind me. Jason and his son were behind him. You know, we were in a line.
They were behind you. They weren't in front of you. They're all behind you.
I realized I just always periodically checked to make sure my safety didn't get clicked off. It is in a weird spot on this rifle. It was clicked off, so I decided to safely, as I always am, try to be as safe as possible, swing my rifle around and turn the safety on because I couldn't get to it because of all my gear. So as I'm taking it off, it's pointed straight up in the air. I'm taking it off like this, and it must have, I have no clue how it happened. I was humiliated, but it caught on something and it went off. Scared the shit out of me, into the air, not behind me. I mean, I would have to be a freaking sniper genius to attempt murder and just shoot him, but nobody else behind me. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And my girls should, that should have been a red flag for them. But instead, they just pretend that it never was said. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-laws, that you would sit by and be like, oh, I can't even believe that. And I saw Twin 2 make a comment on there like, I know, right? Can't believe it.
There's no reality really in their world.
No, they are living in a delusion.
Pathetic.
It's
and
so
sad.
pathetic. He even admits it. I was humiliated. I was devastated.
That round went off.
Went off. I mean, because I know that's very scary.
Yep.
And my youngest son was with me.
He was there.
He's a sharp young man. He was with me, and he and I were both like, what the heck? We thought somebody had just shot at an elk.
He saw how upset I was. I was really upset. I mean, it's just sick.
He knows.
The delusions are sick.
My young son's smarter than the people he's around right now. He can see through it, but he's stuck. He's stuck because he's finding things out about his father from 12 years ago he didn't know, and he's not finding them out from me. He's hearing these lies.
We already talked about meeting the Monday before Thanksgiving. And again, we're just going to try to quickly go through these lies. Thanksgiving morning, Twin 2 mentioned that she said to you, what did you do now, when you walked in to tell her? Because you had found out he dropped the bomb that he purposely wanted to drop in order to injure every single person in that house, which included the children, which I begged him not to do. I have text messages saying, do not, their kids are there. What are you doing? I told him, you call Jason or you call your sister. Do not call that house.
When you said drop the bomb, define what that means. Like, what do you say?
You'd have to go back and tell a little bit about that evening.
Thursday, early morning, like 1 in the morning. I told him everything, and he, of course, was, understandably upset and became very manic, as he does, mixed between rage and sadness, which, again, I had understanding of. But then he was in a rage, and he said, I'm dropping a bomb in that house.
What house was that?
The compound.
Yeah.
The reason he wanted to do that was to involve the kids. And not only that, they did. Then they proceeded to involve the kids. It's just unreal to me.
Well, it's impossible for him to understand that there was no sex. right?
It's
there was
impossible
nothing
for
like
them to
that, so he had to
come
get ahead
to
of
terms
that.
with that,
He had
right.
to get ahead of that and make it all up, make it sound that way.
And one of the only Snapchats that I sent you was to tell him, hey, is calling the house, just so you know. And Jason's response to me was,
I said, I'll handle it.
I'll handle it.
So you and your whole family were there for Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Yes.
And except for my oldest kids, twin two, my ex-wife and I were sleeping out in her parents' camper. I got up about 4:30 in the morning to go inside and use the restroom, and their mother was up, and we had some small talk. I used the restroom, came back out, and thought I was going to get some coffee or something, and she says, Fuzz is on the phone with Illegit Mac, and Fuzz is the Illegit Mac's father. You've seen him on video because he's filmed him too. I immediately knew then, if the Illegit Mac's calling at that time in the morning, and has been calling, and his mother says there's something serious, I knew exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm walking back out to the camper, I look at my phone, that's when I see her text, and I text and say, I'll handle it. Mm-hmm. I went in, I woke up twin two, my ex-wife, and I said, we need to talk.
So she didn't say, what did you do now?
No, she's saying that for her own ego and make herself sound like she's capable and prepared of handling those kind of situations with a little bluster, but she's not. Anyway, what I said was, we're going to separate. I'm going to separate. And the first thing she said to me was, you mean you're going to leave me destitute? Spent all these years at home while you worked, not going to school, not making any money, and you're going to leave me destitute. And I said, is that your first concern when I say it's time for us to separate? Not somebody that you truly and deeply want to be with the rest of life, but you think I'm going to leave you destitute even after my utter and complete financial failure and doing whatever it took to provide for you and the kids? That's your first concern? Oh, well, you're also the love of my life. And I'm like, okay. And that's how that conversation went. Right after that, we went outside, and here's where it gets interesting. The Illegit Mac's father, this is a retired lieutenant in the Oregon State Police here in Central Oregon, comes out, puts his bony little finger in my face, and looks at me and tells me, I knew you were a sexual predator. He said, I know your type. That's the kind of career I spent, and I know what they look like. When I did cheat on her 12 years prior, I called them to ask them to forgive me for doing that. His response then was, well, I guess the Bible tells us to forgive, so I guess I'll forgive. Then we never spoke again for the next 12 years until I got here.
Which is just a great picture of that family and how they handle things. They just sweep it under the rug, pretend it doesn't exist, and continue the illusion of what they want the world to think of themselves. What happened, Mr. Oregon State Police, when your son was being molested like he's talked about on the videos? Which I thought was a short-term temporary thing, but according to the Illegit Mac, it was years worth of molestation. Where was your discernment and prowess in your career then to protect your own son from being molested? What about your daughters, who, twin two, the second twin, and we call her twin two because she's always been jealous of her older sister's hair and her outgoing personality. There's a lot of insecurity that runs deep in this family. Where was it then when she tells me they used to lay in the lawn at their house looking at the clouds go by with a convicted and imprisoned child sex offender? Where was all your police prowess then? You don't know me. All you know is that your lying son told you a bunch of stuff on the phone, and without doing any detective work whatsoever, you came out, told me I was a sexual predator, that you knew me and you've always known me. You said, good thing I don't have my firearm. And I said, why is that? Why do you need your firearm? You said, I'll blow your guts out. I bet the Oregon State Police would love to know that about one of their illustrious retired lieutenants. His murderous intent, without any kind of legitimate investigation of what's going on, but just believing a son who just not too long prior to that had eviscerated him in a phone call, cussed him up and down, hated the good brother-in-law so badly that he wanted him dead, and had done that for 20 years because this feckless, illegitimate Mac would not go to his brother-in-law and talk to him face to face. And now he's approached this entire situation in the most feminine fashion. So there was two murderous intents that day. One was the Illegit Mac's father, and the other was the Illegit Mac, who said he wanted to put a bullet in my head. Yep. And we have the text I can show.
I said, or we could just talk this out. I said, you can have somebody check me for weapons. We'll do the same. We can step out in the backyard and be men about it.
The Illegit Mac has stated that Jason left his family totally destitute. With that, he's mentioned this a few times. He did take one video down, but then he recently, and we have it, but he recently said it again. He left him with nothing. 5 young kids.
The real hard part is that all of their wealth is tied up in cryptocurrency, and he won't give her a dime.
He has lied on multiple occasions of the ages of not only himself compared to me, which he's 8 years older than me, but the ages of all of our children. I think that's relevant because it's a lie. He lied. It's one thing to get maybe a couple of their ages wrong, but he's gotten all their ages wrong. Since then, he's corrected that a little bit.
Makes the story sound better.
But it makes the story sound better. And not only that, but my daughter, sadly, recently reiterated that lie in her TikTok.
My youngest is 15.
2 of them are married, the other are adults. He definitely didn't. He gave them more than half of everything he owns. However, I'm getting to that. He left me with 2 corn dogs and a burrito.
In the freezer.
He left me no money. He ended up closing our account. He only left, when I looked, I had no money. I had nothing. I had to borrow money to survive. There was $100 in our account. It went from a lot to $100, and then he told me he's only going to keep enough in there to pay our automatic payments for our household stuff. I had nothing. He shut my phone off. He turned off my insurance and my son's insurance. The things he is saying are clearly projections of himself.
Dark triad.
The dark triad. Well, that's what he calls my brother, or called. Now they're BFFs. Before that, Sean was the dark triad, and he also has stated that Sean is a sexual predator to his own children. He has stated that many times, that's what he believed, which I said absolutely not. I don't believe that. But this is very typical of what he does when he doesn't like somebody. He has said these very same things about Charlie, the good brother-in-law, his sister, his parents. He said awful things about my dad. He said awful things about. I mean, I can name something bad he said about just about everyone who he now surrounds himself by. Twin 2 knows very well the things her brother has said, and that those things were not due to Jason's influence. That is such a joke. And the even bigger joke is that Charlie believes it. Yeah, we've already stated that he now lives in the same situation that he eviscerated Charlie and Twin 1 for.
Yeah, it's mom and daddy's house. Let's be clear about that. He hated Charlie for nursing off of his parents for so many years after their bankruptcy. The Illegit Mac's credit, he went out and did what it took to take care of himself and his family. Started a business. Great job. Charlie, on the other hand, the now good brother-in-law, nursed on the Illegit Mac's parents for years. Just before all this went down, his sister and Charlie moved to Idaho to get out from underneath the hate.
Charlie clearly has decided to make up his own lies during this, which is crazy, and has obviously said some what is it, that you have a laundry list of people you've wronged, people were looking for you, like you're the mob or something.
That I owed him money somehow. Since this time that he's claiming I've ruined all these people's lives, he and I hunted and fished together. Why? Because we figured out a way to enjoy hunting and fishing together. We had some personality conflicts. I'm Southern, he's New England. There's some of that, but that was no big deal. Whereas the illegitimate Mac couldn't enjoy jack shit with this guy. And a lot of people can't because he's really uniquely difficult to be around. But I did. Yet he never said a word to me about any of this.
And in fact, didn't you go to dinner with him the day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, went to dinner.
Why do you think the illegitimate Mac never talks about his brother?
His brother, yeah, they have a brother who is a paranoid schizophrenic, diagnosed, and that doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit the look that they want everyone to see. I remember coming into this family and being super sad, and I mentioned it many times to my ex, that why are we not inviting him to family, like Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, and it just was odd to me. My family's not like that. We're very forgiving and loving and inclusive, and I just didn't see that then. I don't know if they're ashamed of the mental illness or what. It runs high in that family. I think there's a lot more mental illness than is even admitted or diagnosed maybe. I think I see it now. This has shown me a lot of mental illness. I think his delusions, the Mac's delusions alone, I mean, they're frightening because they're absolutely made up in his mind.
His father can't protect him, or didn't protect him when he was a young boy, from his own home, his own older brother in the molestation. This is the problem.
A narcissistic trait is to psychoanalyze people around you and project. And that's not just something I'm saying, this is just the truth. He has attempted to compound all that he can think of in order to prevent any response from us. He's trying, and has from day one, tried to get ahead. The story, whatever. The thing is, I wasn't going to call anybody. I just am not that person. He's made it sound like to his audience that I'm someone who wants to get ahead of it, that I want to get ahead of it. I haven't told anybody. I haven't even talked to my own dad, who, by the way, has not talked to me. We've been called grandiose narcissists, covert narcissists.
Dr. the Illegit Mac here, diagnosing his brother-in-law, her brother, as the dark triad. I'm the grandiose narcissist,
grandiose.
and she's covert. I mean, come on.
Are you like grandiose people?
Ask yourselves, kids, who's the one who's made 100 videos? The only reason we're speaking out right now is for you, because you deserve to know the truth. This is the only time we're going to do this. We are giving you the truth, and that's it. And we're going to move on with our lives. We would love if you'd be a part of that. We'd love if you'd give us a call and let us have a conversation and find forgiveness and love and understanding as family should. But this is it. I am not begging, and I am not ashamed. I am absolutely and utterly in love with this man, and I am proud to sit next to him. He's an amazing man. His kids know it, and I hope that one day my girls know it. My son knows it. We're not the ones. We're not the grandiose and the covert narcissists. So, like we already said, Illegit Mac could have gone to a therapist. He really needs to.
His sole objective is to ruin and bury as deep as possible these two people.
Absolutely.
He is that vindictive. He spends hours upon hours since the beginning of these 100+ videos, thankfully of which we've recorded them all, deleting those that have contrary comments, calling them trolls. Even the folks that stay on there and watch that currently agree with him. People are smart. When they see the receipts and the proofs that we'll show in this video, some will continue to believe, and maybe it's enough for him to heal his ego. Maybe it's enough for him to heal. Don't get me wrong, in the beginning, and I have the text to show it, really, really sorry for the pain that we knew we were going to cause to both my ex-wife and the Illegit Mac. And I've said it. I've said it in the text. But then when you get responses where you're called the C word, 1 minute there's reasonable conversation, next minute it's the C word and wants to put a bullet in my head. So what do? I raise my rhetoric with him, or I lower it with him. And now my two youngest daughters, who believe all these lies without talking to me whatsoever, because none of my families talk to me whatsoever, of which he revels in, and so does Twin 2, because it makes them feel better and justified about themselves and what they're doing. Now they are talking like he is. Mr. Golly Gee Gosh Darn It on TikTok is not the Illegit Mac. That's not how he talks. He's living at mommy's and daddy's. It's a 5-acre piece of property. Great, so be it.
Doesn't have a 3-mile-long driveway.
But it's not a 3-mile-long ranch driveway with horses everywhere. And by the way, it was a large corporation. But he spent what, 17 years?
16 years.
16 years working for Home Depot. Be proud of working for Home Depot. Or continue being feckless, weak, pitiful, and feminine.
We did not live together 2 days after the separation. That's a lie. Jason got us, my son and I, an Airbnb because we were fearful of the illegit Mac. We were very fearful, especially my son. And I was very fearful for my son because he didn't like the fact that my son was choosing to stay with me and not accepting the apology that he wanted to give my son for the past that day. Because why that day?
That was an immediate attempt at triangulation.
Which he was able to do with my daughter, who was at the house, who originally had a really mature reaction, and it was the reaction I expected from her. Pain, shock, sadness, but also love and understanding for me.
Your youngest daughter.
My youngest daughter. Now, because of her dad, both my daughters, because of their dad, hate me, apparently. So...
Both my daughters hate me.
Yeah, right.
And their language, the unbelievably horrendous text they sent to her and have sent to me, it's the same language as the illegit Mac.
The video interview they did showed just how proud they were of that. The fact that our kids, like we said already, hate us and don't want anything to do with us. They were very proud of that.
Well, they had to cut the video off when he called her
Me a whore.
A whore.
Because they were all laughing.
And they laughed about it.
Nice Christian reaction. Jason did not ever write my text to my girls. My girls know that I actually do have depth and I do have a mind of my own and I can write my own text. And every single text I send my daughters is from my heart. Twin 2, this is something so stupid, said that I have always hung my ass out in front of Jason. Such a lie. That's not who I am. The illegit Mac even says on one of his videos that, that's funny, I never noticed her doing that. What I always saw was her acting how she acts in front of everyone. I've never hung my ass out. It's ridiculous.
Well, at this point, I'm happy to have seen who my real friends are. I have a neighbor that I loved like a brother. I can only assume he believes all those lies. I've got 2 other friends in Nacogdoches that I love like brothers. I can only assume that they just straight up believe these lies. Nobody's reached out. Even my kids haven't called and said, I mean, they could call up angry. Dad, what the fuck? You know, do something. But nobody's reached out because their mother is so incapable and such a huge dependent person that I even told them, look, I'm thankful that you raised to your mother's aid because they know I'll be fine. But they strike out like that or don't respond whatsoever and don't talk to me, not because I'm an uncaring father and I was terrible and all that kind of stuff, but the things they've said and done, they know will hurt me the deepest because of the father they know I have been to them. Second time, my oldest son, who I thought was my ride or die. The second time, this Marine has not come to me first. That's deeply disappointing, but I'm thankful to learn the character of my kids and the closeness of the relationships that I thought I had, including my own mother.
In his videos, he says that narcissists, I'm reading this, try to control the narrative. Exactly. That's exactly right. He is exactly 100% right because he is the narcissist here. We have made no videos. Again, he's made over 100. We have been the ones he has been lying about. This is it. This is our only video. He states that narcissists are concerned about appearance. Again, we haven't. It's him. It's him.
We'll have a little clip of who's concerned about appearances.
I've never been one that's had dandruff, but this.
Yeah.
We'll see that in the video.
Here we go. Stupid lies. That I'm anorexic. I'm not even gonna. Come on. That I've had plastic surgery. I only wish. That maybe my girls aren't his. Go ahead and do the DNA test if you haven't already. You're his. That I killed my dog out of spite. My 16, almost 17-year-old dog. Ridiculous. That was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. That I didn't show up to my grandpa's funeral. I wasn't invited to my grandpa's funeral. I didn't know about it until my aunt must have realized that I wasn't invited, so she immediately texted me a link so that I could watch live. That's fine. My grandpa knows that I loved him, and he knows now, and that's all that matters. And the rest of you can F off. My brother, what a joke. That's how I feel about that. Do you have anything to say?
My kids know me. They may say, oh, we didn't know you. We didn't know about what you did to our mother 12 years ago and things like that. You're right, you didn't. How do two parents or one parent come out with that to their little kids? Just gather you up one day and say, hey, kids, listen to what your daddy's done. I just wanted to rebuild. I just wanted to build trust, to have a relationship where there is mutual, verbal, physical, emotional affection for one another, and a life lived together. From very early on, that wasn't the case. When you two oldest left the house, it was incredibly difficult for me because I already knew what my life was going to start to look like when you were all gone. My relationship with you kids was deep on a lot of levels, conversationally and otherwise. And I wasn't getting that from my marriage. But when you oldest two left, I knew that I needed to cut that loose because I didn't want to be that weird dad that was clingy because of the relationship we already had, and my oldest daughter was getting married and her husband needed to become that for her, you know, and my son. And so I didn't want to be that. So I began to pull away just to give you the space, and because I needed to cut that off and begin to deal with that for me. And it was really painful. It was really hard. But I couldn't talk to you about that. I couldn't tell you, hey, I've analyzed myself, self-evaluated. This is why it's so hard for me, besides the fact that I just love you with all that I am, give my life for you, sacrificed endlessly, hours upon hours and years upon years for you. I've failed. I'm not perfect. And I've done some good things. And you know damn well we have some good memories. But I needed to back off. But I knew as time went on, each night my life would look like me sitting in front of the TV, falling asleep on the couch with no legitimate depth of relationship. It just wasn't there. And I try to give your mom the benefit of the doubt. Again, I've got texts and just say, look, surely you will connect with somebody else better than you have me. And you will love them more than you have me. And I'm not just talking about after I failed 12 years ago. I'm talking about building up to that first 10, 12 years of marriage. But there was no out in our worldview at the time. And so now what you're seeking to do is hold us to a worldview that you know she and I both don't agree with anymore. Because I don't agree with a worldview that says, hey, if you don't get exactly right who and what God is and who and what you are and exactly how you're supposed to live and exactly what you're supposed to do, because you could go out here on the highway and die today, then you're going to spend eternity separated from God, weeping and gnashing your teeth in the lake of fire, being tormented by demons. I'm sorry, I don't buy that fear and control anymore. It doesn't mean I don't believe in Christ or God or any of those things. It just means that my understanding is expanded beyond where it has been for my entire life. But you're holding us to a standard that most of you don't even fully agree with. Their thinking hasn't changed at all, forever. And that's the problem. I never wanted this to be between us like this. You two young girls, I don't know how we return back to the relationship we had before this happened. But I'm willing to try. You two oldest two, you know better. You know me. And my youngest son, I moved here. Jettisoned the idea of building a retirement on that property in Texas so that you and I could have 3 or 4 years together in the outdoors. I moved here to specifically spend time with you and my youngest daughter some more as well, and to be near you. And your mom moved you away. I hope you see through that. I know you're smart enough, and you know I love you.
And my girls, I just want to say again, I love you. You know I love you unconditionally. I will always be here. I'm here for the hard conversation. I'm here to be honest. I have nothing to hide. I am not ashamed. But I'm here for the anger and the pain and then the forgiveness and the healing. It is going to take some forgiveness and healing on both of our parts. There have been a lot of things said that have been awful. But I will always love you unconditionally.
Those things haven't been said on this side,
No.
by the way. It's all on that side.
Yeah.
I feel zero guilt in this situation. If your standard is that the ink has to be dry on the paperwork, well, I'm sorry. That's not it. There was a long period of time thereafter, after the separation, where all this was going on. We just wanted to hopefully work this out in the best possible way for you kids. But I would make this decision 1,000 times over. Because what I was looking for as a 21, 22-year-old guy, I found every single detail and aspect in this lady here. And I am looking forward to building a happy life the rest of my days that I have left here. And after this video, we're moving on. And it's going to be happy.
And we hope that you all will be a part of it.
Yeah.
But it's up to you. The ball's in your court.
Definitely in your court.